So the political candidates for the mayor's race have already started their campaigning. Raymond Lopez, who has been a big critic of Mayor Lightfoot, he's an alderman on the South Side, Hispanic alderman. He's been doing a lot of campaigning. Willie Wilson, he's been getting out, and Mayor Lightfoot, he's starting to campaign a little bit too. It's starting slowly, but we're getting towards campaign season, so we're going to see that picking up more and more, man. But one of the big political firestorms that's erupted lately in the state of Illinois in general, and especially in Chicago and one of the surrounding suburbs, we've been having migrants sent to Chicago from the south. Okay, now this has been going on in several northern cities, Washington D.C. as well, and they've had a migrant crisis for a long time in the south, in the southern border states, especially Texas, Arizona. People in the thousands cross every week, and they've been complaining about that for a long time and the issues that that's causing for their state. And a lot of times in the north, a lot of Democratic politicians kind of, I would say, kind of sweep that aside and sweep aside their concerns and belittle what they're talking about. And so they've started just taking those migrants and shipping them to these northern cities. So this is a very difficult situation, okay? And me personally, it's hard to come down on either side of this because on the one hand, they are having a very difficult time at these southern border states, but there's got to be a more constructive way to deal with this problem. And as far as like dealing with the migrants, each one of them has an individual story. There are people who genuinely fleeing for their lives from dangerous situations back in their home country. They may have gotten on a bad side of one of the cartels. Journalists that have reported on the cartels and are having their lives threatened or for various other reasons. And then you got a lot of people who are just crossing for economic reasons. And as somebody whose family came here in a similar situation, I'm not gonna be a hypocrite and pretend like that shouldn't be something that's facilitated in some way. Somebody's always going to be hurting, no matter who's benefiting in this situation. It's one of these very complicated situations. But the Republican mayor of one of the suburbs of Chicago now is calling out Mayor Lightfoot after 60 migrants were shipped to his town and dropped off at a local hotel. Now, Mayor Lightfoot has said that Chicago is going to be a sanctuary city. We're going to welcome these migrants. But she took these 60 migrants and she sent them to this suburb, which is a different municipality, without telling this guy. He was not informed that this was going to be happening. So after being bused from Texas, the 147 migrants arrived in Chicago on Wednesday, according to Fox News. 64 of those migrants were then taken to a Hampton Inn hotel in Burr Ridge, which is outside of Chicago, where they will be held for the next 27 days. So the Burr Ridge mayor, whose name is Gary Grasso, he's a Republican. He told Fox News that the migrants are being used as, quote, political pawns by Mayor Lightfoot and by the Illinois Governor, J.B. Pritzker. He says, as is my understanding, this hotel about a year ago, when refugees came in from Afghanistan, apparently accepted several, either through faith-based or charitable organizations. But now the state assumes they can just send migrants. This isn't about them. The migrants is fine. They're being used as political pawns by the governor and the mayor. That's according to the mayor of Burr Ridge. So Grasso also said that it's hypocritical for Lightfoot to be complaining about the Texas governor sending migrants to Chicago and then turning around and sending the migrants out to the suburbs. And he said, we're more than happy for people to find freedom. It is hypocrisy by the mayor of Chicago to complain about the governor of Texas. I do agree with what he's doing. The city of Chicago says that it's going to be a sanctuary city, which I oppose. But there must be vacant hotel rooms in Chicago. This is hundreds of people in a city of millions. Why are they sending them out to the Republican suburbs? You have to wonder, he said. So he just said that just because the specific Hampton Inn was used to previously house refugees from Afghanistan does not give them the carte blanche to the governor or the mayor to send a couple of busloads of migrants to our village without telling us. And the border situation, he said, on the southern border is a totally different situation than the Afghan refugees. He said it's total arrogance for the state to assume that they can send migrants to the suburbs around Chicago. So a spokesperson for the village of Burr Ridge told one of the news stations in Chicago, NBC5, that the migrants were originally at the Salvation Army Shield of Hope in Chicago and then transported to the Hampton Inn. According to the report, a statement from the Illinois Department of Human Services reads that the migrants are receiving temporary shelter in urban and suburban hotels that have provided refuge for vulnerable families from Afghanistan and other parts of the world. We're grateful for the hospitality and care that they've received from individuals and organizations across Illinois. It said we will continue taking action to ensure everybody in Illinois has access to shelter, food, health care, and other basic essential supports. We anticipate that the state of Texas will continue to bus migrants to Illinois, and we remain committed to helping people welcome new arrivals in a responsible, orderly, and compassionate way. So that's according to their statement. Lightfoot has criticized the governor of Texas multiple times and has said that he lacks any morals, humanity, or shame. So right now, during campaign season, during the political campaign season for this to be happening, there's a tightrope here that has to be walked. And I'm not saying that she's doing that, but politically, Chicago, is very divided up ethnically. The Latino vote, the black vote, the white vote, these votes often get pretty divided up along ethnic lines among the various political candidates here. Chicago is a pretty strong Democratic city. It's majority of people here are Democrats, but each ethnic group kind of picks their candidate. Now Lightfoot was actually picked, ironically, by whites. A lot of white liberals really put her into office. The favorite candidate last election for the black residents and voters was Willie Wilson, and ironically, the irony in this is tremendous because Willie Wilson now was recently getting support in a lot of the white communities on the north side. I've been seeing signs for him all over the northern suburbs and Skokie. He was campaigning with a lot of white voters. So that might be, if I'm his political strategist, I'm looking at the fact, well, he already has the black vote, so we need to reach out to other constituencies. The Latino vote is kind of it's kind of ambiguous which way it's going to go. Raymond Lopez, he's campaigning with the Latinos too. He's campaigning with all races, but some people would think that, well, they're going to go with the candidate that's their ethnicity. That's not always the way that it goes. Like I just mentioned with Lightfoot, she wasn't the white candidate. That was Bill Daley. But people tend to side more with who is supporting the issues that they want to see addressed. And with the migrants, a lot of Latinos, they've got relatives that are from other countries that are trying to come here, especially a lot of the Mexicans on the southwest side. So how we treat these migrants, is going to send a message to the Latino community here. And so if Lightfoot was to say, we don't want these migrants, send them back, and if she was to just do something else with them and treat them with hostility, that sends a message to the Latino voters here in Chicago that, she's not on their side. Whether or not they would interpret it like that, I don't know, but that's a risk that she would run by doing that. So she has to, walk a very fine line here as far as how she treats, because these are mostly Latino migrants. So, how she's going to treat them in order to get that Latino vote that now is a bigger and bigger percentage of the total vote. I think it's about 30-something% now of the total vote. If you don't get at least some Latino votes, it's very hard for you to win the mayoral election here. So, yeah, we have to include that in the conversation, the fact that the mayoral campaign is starting here. So whether or not, you guys agree with what the governor of Texas and Arizona are doing, you guys can let me know in the comment section. But to me, it's something that should be handled together as a country. Like, there needs to be meetings among the mayors, among the governors of these states, and decide collectively, what are we going to do? I think that this should be discussed first, and at least attempt to come to an agreement on it, so that we don't have, this kind of bickering back and forth. Because even though, nationally, politicians might have to come down on one side or another on this issue, at the state and local level, a lot of times people take different positions in their parties based on the local interests. And, Lightfoot, despite the fact that she's a Democrat, she could see it from his position, and he could, try and see it from her position and come to a compromise on this, especially with some of the Republican mayors in the surrounding towns, because the state of Illinois does have room right now. And I would say more room probably than Texas and Arizona have. Obviously not as far as land mass, but as far as, room in the cities. They've got a huge homeless crisis down there. They've got, this migrant crisis that they've been having for years. And so if the Democratic governors and mayors are going to chide them and are going to put it on them to deal with this, and then call them racist if they don't deal with it, then they've got to walk the walk and back up words with actions and be willing to help them deal with it. That's my particular position, but you guys can let me know what you think in the comment section. This is Boy Windy Report. I'm out.